Streaming? Perfect, I'll call the meeting to order here, it's 9:31. Start with additions, deletions, anything from administration? Anything from council? Not seeing any, if I get a motion to accept the agenda. Councilor Coogan?
I'll move adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion on the floor, I'll call the question, all in favor? It's moved. 4.1, adoption of the minutes, council meeting from July 16, 2025. Any visitors, any comments, concerns? Oh, I see Councilor Dean just joining us online there. So you can hear us all?
Hi, Chair, can you hear me?
Barely. Just checking the volume on our side here.
Is it that similar selection or stickers or it's a different speaker?
Just, try talking again there, Al.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can make, yeah, just really quiet. They're trying to see if they can turn the volume up here. Got nothing there now. Sorry, Al, can't hear you. Try again, Al? Nope.
Can you try again now, please?
Nope. No, it's our end, Al. It's not your end.
Okay, yeah, Devin just said that he can hear me clearly, but he can barely hear you guys.
Is it just gotta turn the TV up, maybe?
Should have found slow. Yeah, there's. No, nothing.
Hey, Al, you wanna try talking?
Can you hear me now, you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, that's better. We can hear you.
Okay.
Try again? And now we get lots of feedback through the TV. Is there a remote or a volume for the basement speakers here instead of the TV? Yeah, you got the eye in the sky kinda noise coming out there, so.
And I know that one
Pause Street in minutes. Councillor Prestige?
Motion that, we accept the council meeting July 16th, 2025 minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Noted, or any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Al?
In favor.
Okay, that's passed. No delegations, bringing 7.1, first reading of draft Woodlands County Land Use Bylaw 630/25.
Through the chair to council, thank you for all of your dedication and help through this process of the land use bylaw.
Just check with the administrator, do we still have the Teams feed for them to be able to see what administration's saying, or?
I mean, if they join me back in Jordan, it seems I can do it.
It'll be up if they log in.
Alright, can you guys hear Joshua from back there? Hello?
Yeah.
You can? Devin, just checking, you can hear Joshua? Somebody's talking? Possibly?
Devin, are you muted?
Counselor Williams? Okay, well, I'm not seeing him on there, or hearing him. Devin, can you hear us? In the interest of time, at least we can hear him phone, like I can't contact Devin, we just keep going, so.
Yeah, I would assume that he's unavailable with quorum, so if
Okay,
he's.
Joshua, you wanna keep going?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so, just in light of, the special council meeting changing, we've decided to put the first reading onto this council meeting. I still have the opportunity to provide feedback, recognizing it's a large document, as long as we have any changes prior to the public hearing. If council has any suggestions or changes they wanna make, we can go ahead and make those prior to the public hearing and present those. We're suggesting that, we hold a public hearing around, on September 10th at 5:15 p.m. So I'll just go through and give some background on the LUB itself. So we've been through this process just over a year now, and we've tried to engage the public on multiple occasions to receive feedback from residents on what they're looking for in land use bylaw. As well as we've held four ad hoc committee meetings to try and get some feedback from council members at large, which went relatively well and helped shape this document. So with all those suggestions and all those conversations we finally have a finalized draft for consideration. For the interest of time, I've put together that have been made in this draft document. Would it be in council's interest for me to read these out, or have you had time to review them?
I know for the ones who've been on the committee, it's a lot of what we've been looking at over and over and over, but for the others, I'm not sure. Let's see, here was there, Counselor Williams, just checking, do you, need us to go through the changes or the amendments on, land use bylaw? I know you weren't part of those committee meetings, so.
No, I think we can go through all of them pretty in detail.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so what I will move along and ahead is that I have a few attachments attached to the RFD. I have, of course, the draft bylaw 63025. We've also included a high-level LUB edits table. This is just showing the particular changes as we've made them to provide you opportunity to see where we're making the changes rather than reading through the whole document. We also referred this document out to our adjacent municipalities, and we've gotten comment from a few of them. They still have opportunity to comment until the 15th of August, so we're still waiting on a few comments here. Overall, there's no concerns with the document itself. They have no issues with the proposed. Rather just some minor suggestions that they had for user clarity, which those changes have been made and they're put in the table accordingly. So with that being said, the recommendation today is that council give first reading to the land use bylaw and schedule a public hearing. If you have any questions, though, I'd like to open that up, if you have any questions for me.
I got a couple questions if I can here to start. Just one, and I know we've had discussions previously around this, but through the land use bylaw, the amendments we're doing, we haven't really opened up the airport portion yet, and I know that we've had discussions that we need to have a detailed look at the land use around the airport and structure as a whole. When we do that, do we have to do a full land use bylaw, like, I guess rework again, or is that just an amendment to a section?
Just an amendment, yeah, we can just make a minor amendment. What we'll do is we'll update the districts that are affected and then the general regulations for the airports. It's a pretty quick process once we dial down what we want.
Okay. And then my second comment, given that we've had multiple open houses and comments and, concerns from some people, and some people, I guess are more, some of the comments were more positive, so, you got the positives and negatives. How has that feedback from residents impacted what we put in this, just so that the public, at least, general public knows?
Quite substantially. We've tried to take that information and craft something that has a balance of public feedback, so we're taking into consideration what the public wants, what council wants, what the members at large had suggested, and then some of legal's recommendations as well. There were a few things, like we had pitched an idea of the cooperative living district, which is an idea that potentially putting the bylaw to make it easier to run larger businesses with a more of a communal style living on a property. But we received overwhelming negative feedback on that, so that was one of the things that we actually removed because it wasn't aligned with what the community wanted. There's also other changes. So when we ran our surveys back last year, we took the information on how many houses people wanted to see on lots of various sizes, and we used that information to help craft how we are going to permit homes and housing of different districts throughout the county. So overall, we've tried to take suggestions from the public and incorporate in a document that works for everyone.
And then, last comment I have, we've had some individuals, we'll say, again, this is just for the public, but some individuals have had concerns about the secondary suites and kind of living, additional living occupancies allowed on different parcels and different zones within the new land use bylaw. But just for clarity, all we're doing is just kind of reworking what's currently there, and a lot of what's already written in this new land use bylaw is current in our new land use bylaw, just the legislative changes around, say, like garden suites, secondary suites, but we're not really changing much there.
Yeah, overall, like there is some minor changes. Basically what we're doing is we're just changing the regulations around. So I heard some concerns around country residential districts and individuals not liking the idea of potentially allowing a permanent secondary home on country residential districts. That would be one of those scenarios where we're not really changing anything, we're just changing the regulation. Before, it was allowed under a garden suite. You'd have a second residence under a garden suite, but you had to provide affidavits. And the legislation that was based off of no longer exists. So what we've done is we've removed that, and we just kept a secondary home now under discretionary use class. So that if someone wants a secondary home, they can just apply for it. It's a permanent secondary home now. So in that sense, nothing's really changing. Because I heard some concerns about density, right? Like individuals not wanting a more densely populated community. The density capability or the ability for people to have two properties on those kind of CR subdivisions is not changing. We're just changing the way you'll not apply for it. We're just changing the type of home. It can be a permanent home now. It doesn't have to be removed once a family member no longer lives in there. One of the other changes was we did make some changes to the agriculture districts. on the size of your parcel, you may be allowed 2 homes, of course, it's discretionary, or 3 homes. So a larger parcel, you could potentially have 3 homes. Again, not really an overall change, you could do that under the old land use bylaw, there's just more red tape on how you could do it now. Now it's just gonna be considered a discretionary use. So I hope that answers the question, I apologize for rambling there.
Oh, and again, I know we've had lots of discussion around this, but just anybody watching the meeting or who has concerns, already is something that's allowable in our current bylaws before we even pass this bylaw, so I'm just making sure that clarity's out there. Any other questions or comments from council?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Dean?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to council, I just want to speak to section 9.14, the tree clearing that came up late in the land use bylaw review process. In my opinion, the way it's written right now is not really reflective of what the committee had discussed. And in discussions that I've had with residents that are both people that property owners that may want to harvest and clear trees, and or residents that live in a highly dense country residential area and they want some sort of conditions put on for bumpers, etc., as well as people in the industry, the loggers. I've had a couple different loggers contact me. They may have questions that I couldn't really answer. What I pledge to everybody involved is, given the sensitivity of this section, as well as the fact that it's new to our county and our council, I'd like to, similar to the airport, I'd like to pull this out. I have no problem with the rest of the land use bylaw, but I think this section needs more consideration by council, and it needs more public engagement to come up with language that truly reflects what we're trying to do. And for that reason, I would move that we direct administration to remove section 9.14 tree clearing from the proposed land use bylaw 630/25 prior to second reading, and further direct administration to review the section and undertake additional public engagement on this matter, with the results to be brought forward for council consideration in the new year.
Okay, motion on the floor. I know we did have a lengthy discussion at the committee meeting, but there was no real direction to pull this out or move it after, from at least my recollection, but, any other discussion on the motion for removing this right now? Joshua?
Yeah, if I may, Chair, to Councillor Dean, we did put a section 9.14.6.1. We do have a clause there that we can impose a 3-meter tree buffer between parcels at the development authority's discretion. So if there was a situation where we needed to have a tree buffer, we could do that accordingly. Just for clarity, it is in there. But again, yeah, it's definitely to regulate tree clearing can be tricky because everyone has different needs and wants. So I'll just leave that there, whatever council decides.
Sure. And speaking to my own motion, what I feel is that the vast majority of tree clearing operations, the way they're handled
this section from the land use bylaw and have administration bring it back later. All in favor? Al?
In favor?
Okay, opposed? And that's defeated. So back to the agenda item here, if anybody wants to make a motion to, Councilor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council give first reading for land use bylaw 630/25.
Okay, motion to give first reading on the floor, discussion to the motion. Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, that is carried. Motion two on the agenda here to schedule an open house for September 10th at 5:15. Council? Councilor Coogan?
I'll move the council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for land use bylaw 63025 at 5:15 PM September 10th, 2025 at Woodlands County Council chambers in Whitecourt.
And just speaking to that motion of administration, given the breadth of our municipality, would it be worthwhile trying to schedule a second one more ongoing?
We could do that. If there's interest in that, we could do that accordingly. I'm not sure what the availability is like up at the Legion Hall.
We have our chambers.
Yeah, we could do the council chambers. I think on a different day would have to, I'm not sure what Tracy, Tuesday. 9 might work.
Again, I just wanna make sure that everybody from both ends of the municipality has something close to go to and we have a discussion.
Tuesday the 9th is ASB, depending on the time. You're talking September, right? September 9th I have as an ASB meeting between 10 to 12. Other than that, it should be open. So if it's in the afternoon, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, the evening's probably best.
Yeah.
Or after, right?
Yeah.
So maybe do it, hold at the same time on the 9th. In Assiniboine.
I just, would Councilor Coogan be amenable to, amending the, the motion to include Tuesday, 9th, and Port Assiniboine at 5:15?
Sure would be.
Okay, so motion on the floor for September 10th and September 9th. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor?
In favor? In favor.
That's passed. 7.2, bylaw 629/25, fees and changes bylaw for council considerations.
Sorry if I may, Mr. for the chair. With Trinity's here, would you be willing to perhaps give him a couple minutes to see if we can get our proper AV?
We'll take 2 minutes here while he's here to see if we can get the system working.
Money on different things. We try to introduce some fees to at least improve some level of cost recovery. The other thing we did is we did a review of our neighboring counties and to see what they were charging for similar services, to see if we were competitive with them, to make sure we weren't completely out of whack with what they were charging. So we have attached an Excel sheet here where each department went through and we compared our fees to the neighboring municipal fees. We've also proposed some cost recovery fees. What we did is we took those numbers and we introduced them into a new bylaw. So we have drafted a new fees bylaw here, where we could consolidate fees from other bylaws. We took them from those bylaws and introduced them into this one so that we could have all our fees in one place for simplicity of example, I'll speak to planning and development. Some changes were made in light of the anticipation of the new bylaw coming into force, potentially here in September. We went ahead and added some fees accordingly, as there'll be different development permit requirements. Recognizing that our current fees, there's some fees that may need to be broken down into more classes, we've done that accordingly. So that's really what we've done here in the review. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll try to answer them the best I can, or the appropriate department, try to answer the changes if you have any questions.
Question I do have is we do have on the snow plow flag and driveway portion, because I think the fees have gone up in those, and obviously cost of operation has gone up as well. But are we anticipating rolling that out this year or next year, just given the amount of individuals who utilize that service, and the fact that we should have some type of, campaign drive ahead of time so that they understand that, there is gonna be, it's not a large increase, but still an increase in some of these individuals, who this is part of their budgets that they look for every year. And I don't wanna be preemptive and throw a cost increase out on that without them having the time to properly budget going on.
Right, so the bylaw, we have written in the bylaw right now, it'll come into force January 1st, 2026. So that gives us some time to maybe get the word out there, and if there's changes need to be made, it can be done before then. I hope that Matthew, if you have anything to add there.
I think there, just to clarify that further, is with the January 1st deadline of it coming into place, there isn't anything stopping people from preemptively buying a handful of snow flags between now and December, if their budget was to allow it at the cheaper cost as well.
And typically they are purchased when the snow starts flying, so I know we sell most of them at the beginning of winter, but I just wanna make sure that there's enough time for people to make consideration for that, at least make sure that the information gets out ahead of time. Any questions, comments from council? Councilor Rose?
Just one question to Council Mr. Chair, through the chair to administration. Where, we have fines that are in here too, right? And is this just the schedule of fees? Cause I seem to remember the fines were in this
Yes.
as well, right?
We do have some, where you'll see fines is under the land use bylaw, there will be 3 fine amounts. There'll be a first offense fine, second offense fine, and third offense fine. And that was in the old land use bylaw. What we did is for clarity, is we just put it in this bylaw, so it's all in place. The new draft bylaw, the way it's worded in there, it just says, the fence fines will be in accordance with the fees, in this bylaw. So they're just taken from that and put to here.
So specifically, my question would be, where would we be?
Absolutely. If I may, the chair, so illegal dumping and those sort of things, we thought it was best, we did do an additional draft where the illegal dumping and all those other fees and charges were in this bylaw, but it was ultimately removed for multiple reasons. One, when a ticket's being issued, the officer has to reference the bylaw and the section accordingly to make it a successful ticket. The concern was we had was the increase of errors of our officers referencing the fee bylaw section when they should actually reference the actual bylaw section for it to be a valid ticket. We thought that would create some confusion, and because they are fines specifically related to violations, we thought it was appropriate, keep those in the bylaw that speaks to those rules. That way, they're all in one place, because the land use bylaw was structured in such a way that the fees were mentioned to be elsewhere, we thought it was appropriate to keep it here.
So it's a fairly substantial change. I guess that's why I was looking, because I wanted to see about the illegal dumping, because the odds that we actually catch somebody doing it are not really good side. It would be nice to have a good-sized hammer for it, because it's good.
Anything else in council? Matthew?
Just one thing I wanted to note, the changes in the reviews are pretty thorough and detailed, and we did ask that each department kind of highlight significant changes or new fees. The one that I just wanna highlight that it's in there and there's a reference to it though, is there is a charge for when it comes to applying penalties or late fees or that sort of thing onto a person's title. So if you were to not pay your utility bill, for example, after a certain point, those fees get put onto your tax roll, so we can collect it back. Similarly, if your taxes aren't paid, you eventually get those put onto the tax roll. The thought process that at least I have suggested administratively is there's a large component of user pay within municipal government. It shouldn't be on everyone else to do all services. So there is now a charge within this draft bylaw that says if you get your utility bills or your taxes put on title, or there's another way that you're delinquent, like an enforcement order, for example, where we put those costs on title, we should be charging for the time of our administration to put those things on title accordingly. It's basically a penalty, I would call it. It's a service charge for not paying your bills in time. Recognizing that there are probably 2, maybe even 3 staff that need to be involved to verify, apply it on the title, and sign off on it. So we thought it would be appropriate to charge those delinquent individuals a service fee for that extra work.
To that procedurally, how long would a person have to be in arrears on, say, utility bill before that would be done?
Typically, it's a month or 2. I'd have to verify the exact procedure within our utility bylaw, but usually it's 2 months. Everyone makes a mistake every now and then when they miss their first one, but after that, if it's starting to get arrears, to ensure we retain that income, we put it on the tax roll as soon as possible.
And is that procedurally, I guess what we do currently?
The exact number I would have to verify through the bylaw. I'm speaking from past experiences of 2 months, but we can bring that to council for.
I'm just saying that procedurally, currently, the way we work, if somebody is up to 2 months or whatever the time is, when the utility bills, so it gets supplied with the tax roll currently.
Yes, if they're a registered owner, yes.
Any other questions from council? Not seeing any, hearing any, wants to, Councilor Prestige?
Make a motion that council get first reading of bylaw 69/.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Thank you. Councilor Burrows?
I'll make a motion that council give second reading bylaw 69/20.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion, motion? None, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Motion 3, we need unanimous. Councilor Kupin?
I'll move the council give unanimous consent to proceed to third and final reading of bylaw 69/25.
Councilor, any discussion? Seeing any? I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
If we have unanimous, we move to motion 4 to give third reading. Councilor Prestige?
Make a motion that council get third and final reading of bylaw 69/.
Thank you, Councilor. Again, I will call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
And that's moved. 7.3 Q2 2025 policy update report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies on this being a little bit late, but I was on holidays for the council meetings in July. As required by our procedures, I'm required to update you on any changes quarterly of all our policies and procedures that have been implemented. Within the item, it outlines the handful of policies that council has adopted or administratively we have changed and or implemented from a procedural point of view. We've been busy over the last quarter and we're gonna be just as busy this quarter from the looks of it. Also, just so you kind of know what we're working on if the public ever asks, those are a list of policies and procedures that we are actively working on in Q3, or they've already been completed, but they occurred in the month or so between the end of July and now, where you've adopted them. A good example is, in July there you adopted the LAPP policy update, which had been flagged by our auditors for multiple financial statements as deficient. So we're making a lot of progress. Some of those items, like the financial investment and oversight policy, they're on here for today. So we haven't lost any steam, and we're still proceeding accordingly that way. With the changes in the policies giving me the authority to make administrative amendments, we have made some administrative amendments. We have updated our purchasing policy to delete a conflict based on comments we heard at a GMP meeting. We've updated our proclamation policy to our new templates. We've updated our benefits program into our new formatting and numbering, our asset management as well. We've also implemented a handful of HR policies. We've implemented a respectful workplace policy, performance management, and progressive discipline policy was rewritten to not only implement and reflect actual changes in legislation, but just to ensure that our managers are aware of the processes to make sure that we're holding everyone accountable. And we've also established a new employee code of conduct on expectations in the workplace, being that those are all policies that are HR related that didn't need to come here, but we're providing them there respectfully so you're aware of what we're doing, and as well as the policies that are just general administrative amendments, because the last thing we want is you to say you aren't aware that we've implemented a change. So it's there for your information. And the only policy in the last quarter that we did end up rescinding was the council remuneration, but we updated that one with the new policy and the new template.
Any discussion from council on any of these? Councilor Rose?
Just have one through the chair, just have one question that's more, I guess, in a general sense, but, I know the province was, the GOA was getting rid of the code of conduct legislation.
Correct.
So, within our policy, and I don't think they've read that through yet, have they? Okay. So, where does that leave us with code of conduct? Will we still have one, or do we have to get rid of it by law, or where is it?
Through the chair, my understanding is that as soon as they enact Bill 50, we will be amending our code of conduct bylaw to reflect it. So we will be removing it under the new requirements with the change.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Not seeing any. If somebody wants to make a motion to accept the information. Councilor Rose?
Make a motion that, council receives the teaching policy and approved information.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you, Councilor. With that, that's moved. 7.4 G1-005 funding political forums policy.
Okay, so this one, policy 1014 was the old policy funding political forums. It was adopted by council on March 6th. That policy established parameters providing limited financial support to organizations hosting the political forums. The new policy that I am bringing forward is actually just stating that we don't host political forums or provide funding, as it can be perceived as bias.
I think just to expand on that, we've had the policy that allowed for funding in place for a significant amount of time, almost 13 years now, and our understanding is it has been very rarely used. The chamber does host its own Meet Your Candidates forum, but has never actually inquired about or received the grant, at least in the last significant amount of time, in the last 5 years or so at least.
Thank you. Any discussion from council? Not seeing any. Councilor Presage?
Make a motion that council rescinds policy 1014 funding political.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I will call the question. All in favor? It's moved. Motion to adopt new policy.
D 1.005, funding political forums as presented.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on that motion? And not seeing any other public question, all in favor?
In favor.
That's moved. 7.5, F 5.203, financial investment policy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So before you is that policy F-5.203. This is the financial investment policy. This one, of course, this new policy, if you look at the old one we had previously, was reviewed in 2001. That just had one policy statement without procedures. So we've gone through to develop this policy, and it has captured a lot of areas, and it also gives us some flexibility to handle some investments. Now, on top of that, we've also attached the procedure for you as well. The procedure, of course, calls for accountability and transparency, because it will not be done just by one person, but it goes through processes before those investments are undertaken. Again, this policy has already gone through the Taxation and Finance Committee August 5th, and recommended this one to Council for adoption.
Sir, any questions on policy? Seeing any? Counselor Pearls?
No, I'm pleased to see that we have a policy on this, and if we are going to have reserves, then it says that we will have an investment policy. So as long as we're saying that, I will make the council adopt policy F-5.203, financial investment policy.
Okay, Counselor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. It's carried. 7.6, F-5.204, strategic financial oversight policy.
Yes, again, this is another policy that went through the Taxation and Finance Committee, and this particular policy, I would say the primary goal is to ensure that financial resources are utilized efficiently. And of course, we have some key highlights there of the policy, especially when it comes to the funding hierarchy. And this particular policy, is very, very important in the sense that it calls for accountability, transparency, and of course, handles part of the risk management. Again, it's a policy that was recommended by the Finance Committee to Council for adoption as well. But remember, this now policy looks at the whole, like the macro sense of almost all the policies. I would say from the financial planning standpoint, this is the mother of all policies, and then those other policies will feed under it because it's an oversight.
Discussion? Questions? Councilor Prestidge?
I make a motion that council adopt policy F-5.204, strategic financial oversight policy.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, that's passed. 7.7, HR 7.011, alternate work arrangement policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently on the books, we have two policies related to flexible work options and remote work. In reviewing them, we felt that they were deficient on a bunch of areas, not only on clarifying expectations of work environments outside of the organization, but also from a safety perception as well. So we worked internally. We have reviewed our existing policies and come up with a new one. Because it is an HR related to staffing mechanisms portion, we will be adopting it internally, and I don't believe we need council's authority to do it. And as a result, we are asking that policies 1975 and 1977 be rescinded. But the big thing that we're looking at is from a health and safety perspective, we're now providing references. We're providing references on IT and security requirements, and we're also verifying those, as well as where the flexibility is. I was concerned when I looked at some of our current agreements. While we have people that occasionally work from home or work remote, there wasn't wording there that says if we really need you, you need to come back in the office, whether it be for an emergency event or something. We're all about giving our staff flexibility and making it a good workplace, but it has to be flexible on both sides, recognizing that certain situations may arise where you need to be in the office. And so we've tried to put those in with the new policy. We've also taken the draft policy and the draft, the procedure isn't on here, but the draft procedure as well to our Health and Safety Committee to address any concerns that they have. And we feel that this is just the next natural step in those two policies that were previously implemented. As such, we would respectfully ask that council rescinds policy 1975 and 1977.
Question I have, so I guess with the policies we currently have that are being utilized, is there a lot of impact currently to the organization changing from this to the new? Like, I'm just making sure they don't have like a large negative impact on. I know this is an HR.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for clarity, there is not intended to be a major impact. There's probably approximately seven staff right now that are on some form of flexible work program. Or that being said, if we have staff whose physicians live in another town and it's easier to stay with family that night and work from that house that day before they go see their doctor, that sort of thing. This won't affect how the staff do their job. The security requirements are from a software point of view, and they just need to ensure that they are doing a quarterly safety inspection, because it is your house and you may get used to the comforts of it, but we do have liabilities as the employer where if they trip while they're at home, while they're working, is there a WCB issue there? It becomes a gray area. So just making sure that they do some extra checks from a bureaucratic point of view, I think is important. But there will not be a significant change. The only, I think the most significant thing is it now says we review it annually. We are the employer, and we do have to regulate to make sure work gets done. There was no mechanisms before where it said it actually got reviewed. We were absolutely doing it, but policy-wise now we say we're going to touch base every year and make sure it's still working for both parties, because it is a two-party agreement. So I think that may have some pushback, but I am not aware of an individual right now that's on a flexible work environment that is actually causing an issue or is having performance issues. So it may just be a stumbling block of why are you redoing this every January? Can't we make it permanent? But I just don't think as an employer we want to make it permanent. Let's review it and just make sure we're still happy with it for everyone.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Councilor Coogan?
Yeah. With that, I'll make a motion that council rescind the following administrative policies. Policy 1975, flexible work options. Policy 1977, remote work, which have been replaced through administrative implementation of the consolidated HR 7.011 alternative work arrangements policy.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion to the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Councilor. That's passed. 7.8, recruitment and selection policies.
Oh, no, it's not. Just looking at it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we have been going through our review of our policies and procedures, this is one that we flagged as needing some updating. There are a total of 5 policies that we have in place right now that govern recruitment and recruitment and selection. I'm of the opinion that they can be consolidated into a single policy for our staff and an applicable procedure. The key highlights are, because it is an HR policy, of course, there's the change where it's now my problem to deal with staffing, less so council's. But also we have put in some clear employment categories regarding what's permanent, what's temporary, seasonal, casual, replacement. Looking at some of our policies, there was some discrepancies on, we used one term versus another for different staff. There was also a significant number of changes in the Alberta Human Rights Act and employment standards that we needed to reflect. We've also attached or developed a procedural document for how the hiring managers are structuring the steps from posting, screening, interviewing, because what at least I've seen in the 8 months here is we were having some discrepancies on consistency. And we do want to make sure that we hire the best candidates, but we also want to make sure it's a standardized, consistent approach so everyone's given an equal shot. We've defined the roles of what my responsibility are, what our directors are, what the hiring managers are, and what human resources are, because even prior to currently having our contracted HR, there was always some confusion of our HR staff of where their role was, whether it be in the interviews or whether it be at the initial job posting point of view. So we've tried to clarify everyone's responsibilities, because there was a lot of gray area on who did what. We've also established a clear requirement on who's doing the interviewing and what a panel consists of, because we have had situations where you could have someone's peer interviewing the new candidate. That does create some power imbalances. Also just ensuring that we always have 2 people involved, and at the minimum at which level who needs to be involved. And then also giving some discretion on some of the positions at the lower end of our organizational chart, just some greater flexibility on who can conduct those interviews. It also incorporates our standardization of what documents we need when you're hired, like your criminal record check, your driver's abstracts at when they're required, and that sort of thing. So overall, we think it's the standardization of this single policy, which we will adopt once you rescind these, is a significant improvement from the 22-year-old policies we have currently, and it actually brings us into compliance with employee labor standards as well, at least in a paper level.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Councilor Rhodes?
No, not a question, just a statement through the chair. Really happy to see that we're finally getting through these policies, and the council has been all over this in the last little while. So hats off to our new administration that's taking this under their purview of getting this thing done. That, on 7/8. With that, I want to see a motion for council to rescind policies 1901, 1951-01, 1952-01, 1953-01, 1954-01.
Counselor, just one quick question I have for clarification. When you mentioned that moves the staffing concerns from council to the CAO, that still stays within the budgetary or confinements the council sets?
Absolutely. There is no changes whatsoever to any requirements that way. All these policies dealt with were in relation to hiring. We're 100% bound by your budget. If we're not going to comply with that, we can't do it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's moved. Thank you. 7-9, administration project policy.
Good morning, Your Worship, and members of council. Speaking to another 22-year-old policy. This current policy, 1201, the administration contract, was initially adopted in 2003. While the current policy was important to set expectations on how to managing contracts and deal with conflict of interest, it's becoming outdated and do not align with current best practices. The initial review of the existing policy identified 2025 policy is missing some key components such as record keeping, scope management, and change management. To modernize the existing policy 1201, we have developed the draft policy attached, as well as a procedure, as well as a standard for staff to use. The updated package will streamline project initialization and closeout, clarify responsibilities, expectations, and introduce standardized templates for staff to use. Without reading through the bullet forms of changes, I've laid all the changes in summary. But if you have any questions, here you answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mrs. Ang? Seeing any, Councillor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council rescind policy 1201, further that council adopt policy AD 2.05, administration of projects policy.
Just check with administration. I know it's listed as two, but can we do that as one? Absolutely. Okay. Motion on the floor to rescind 1201 and adopt policy 82005. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, and that's passed. Brings us down to councillor reports. I'll start with you, Councillor Williams.
My computer's just resetting here, I think the whole thing's wrote down, but it's obviously not gonna work with me, but, we're kind of in the home stretch to the Hamlet Hoedown. I'm not sure if any of the councilors or staff are gonna be making it out to that, but, trying to assist as much as I can on that, and county's doing a few things for the society as well, so that's pretty handy. That's this Friday, Saturday, anyone's around to make it, but just short because of my notes all missing, sorry, thank you.
No worries. Any, sorry for putting you in the spot so quick there. Any questions for Councillor Williams? Not seeing any. Councillor Prestige?
Through the chair. I don't have anything. I have meetings scheduled, and then I'll postpone. So, other than just seeing some of the work that's being done around the county, hats off to our staff.
Councillor Gross?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. August 5th, the taxation committee, taxation slash finance committee met, and I think that was a really good meeting. It's an important conversation that we're starting to have around service levels and around revenue generation, but also around what to do with some of the reserves that the county manages. So that's what you saw in the financial management policies that was passed previously. That's it for meetings, and I did file my paperwork, so I putting my name forward for the 4 years on council, and we'll see how that goes. That's it for me.
Any questions for Councillor Gross? Councillor Coogan?
Yeah, I just had, on the 25th, I had, July emergency meeting with FCSS. That's a discussion we're probably gonna have today, just a short one, I'm sure. Then, we did have that, meeting on 5th of August, with the Finance and Taxation Committee, which was, very, very, it was a really good meeting every day. Learned a lot from some of the different things that we're doing. And then on the 11th, I did meet with, Tegan and Bert and, our consultant for the tourism branding exercise. It was really intense. We did get through, finally have we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on that one. But really was impressed with Tegan. She definitely has been an asset to this organization, and it's helped her out a lot. And I'd just like to say thank you to the staff for flowers for Mondays.
last little bit here's been a little bit slow. Gonna start, we had a industry meeting here again end of last month. One thing a little concerning for the area in general, all three of our large, I guess four of our large, lumber players in the area received letters from the province saying that the FMA, they have a lot of commitments that can be greatly reduced here again. So they're obviously looking at the impacts that that's gonna have and working with the province to try to find a solution around it, because they, and them and myself believe that it's a little preemptive what, Vigilant is doing, and a little surprised having a government and the GOA that's supposed to be working with and for industry, and some of the policies they're coming up with kind of go the opposite direction, so we'll see where that goes. Of course, I don't have a lot more information other than that letters written to the province, and I let them know that if, you know, they need support from the municipality to let us know, we can do it all as well. But so far there's been no other asks. Aside from tax committee, a couple, I guess, discussions that I've been having with some public members. One, out of the Ensemble Hall, they have kind of an arm's reach from the hall, but their concession as part of the ball diamond arena been broken into a few times here over the last couple of years, and it is covered through the hall's insurance, which in turn covers through our insurance as a community group. And they are going to be coming, I believe, on the 10th to the council meeting that they're working with Heather right now. They have quotes to help try to improve the security systems and cameras that they have out in the hall to try to get better responses and stuff that are a little more clear when they're having these issues. Unfortunately, for their funding that they have available, they're a little short, so they will be coming just so council is aware for an ask if there'll be an unbudgeted expense on our side. But it's more of the, I say it's part of the egg group, but not really part of the egg group, because it's part of the, you know, DPAs and NIMA and stuff out there, so we will be seeing it coming, just giving everybody a heads up on it. And another thing, I know we've had discussions around council, the last couple of years around our water rates at Blue Ridge, and we have been increasing them. I have had a couple residents reach out, and their concern is that their water, say the municipal rates for water are greatly outpacing their actual usage of costs. And I know when we have the discussion here, I'm not sure if there was a lot of information that was shared with the Blue Ridge, but the individuals calling didn't really, they hadn't really been notified, they weren't really aware of, you know, what the expenses were for, kind of how that breakdown works. So I'm not sure, again, administratively, this is something where I know we do have increases still coming, but maybe it's something that we have to look at more of a information drive to our two hamlets in regards to what the water rates are and what it covers, and the, you know, the replacement costs and some of that capital and that we're trying to offset and stuff. So I just, again, I know we keep talking about just getting communications out, and it is, I think it was something that we need to communicate administratively, so it's good enough. But that's all I got. Last thing is if I can get a motion to accept council reports. Councilor Prestige.
Make a motion the council receive the council reports for
Thank you, councillor. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And those are moved. Couple more here. 11C.1 Carlson Drive Drainage Improvement Project Update. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you. Good morning, your worship, members of council. I have received a number of calls from your residents as well as Councillor Cook, keeping me on my pulse. Carlson Drive Drainage Improvement Project was identified and approved as part of the 2024 capital budget in December 2023, with $100,000 allocated to perform the engineering tasks. The project limit was to be between the Highway 650 intersection to approximately the easterly entrance of the property, Goose Lake Campground, which is essentially where the road continues to be total of 1.7 kilometers. The scope was identified as general drainage improvement, as some residents identified water is not draining into the county road right of way or across the right of way. In July 2024, we have retained an engineering consultant to perform topographical survey of the county right of way within the project area to collect data, identify problematic areas, provide options for enhancement and design for the work. To date, data collection, issue identification, and some options development has been completed. Some of the issues that the CASAMA identified, I've laid it out here in my RFD. The existing culverts, out of 32 existing culverts identified and inspected, only 6 of them are meeting current county standards. Some of the existing culverts are extremely undersized, 100 mil diameter, and majority of them are either buried or blocked. And secondly, the lack of culverts, the CASAMA identified at least 14 locations that should have a culvert but does not have a culvert currently. And number 3, the ditching situation. Overall, the ditches within project limits are very shallow. Out of the 1.7 kilometers of project, 0.9 kilometer out of that, we're less than the county design standard. And 0.4 out of the 1.7, there's no ditch whatsoever. Number 4, right-of-way width. The existing right-of-way is a mixture of 3/4 of the project limits with 20-meter wide right-of-way, and the rest 1/4 at 30 meter wide. Current minimum construction standard of new roads is similar to Carlson Drive, 30 meter wide right-of-way. We do have a large number of county roads with 20 meter wide right-of-way. We can make things work by putting a V-ditch and sharp on the side slope. It's trying to make it work. Number 5, pedestrian trail. There is a paved walking trail in pretty poor pavement condition. When you walk on the trail, you can see the pavement broken up and becoming a tripping hazard. And you also see tree roots that's coming out of the pavement. Certain locations of the tree branch itself, it's hitting your head if you're walking on the trail. The other issue is the trail was apparently installed after the road was built, but I do not believe there's much design considerations given to the location of the trail. The trail was put at the bottom of the ditch without any culverts that allow water to pass through. So essentially the trail is acting as a bank or a dam blocking water from crossing. And number 6, the trees in the right of way. When you couple with a 20 meter wide right of way and very shallow ditch, and then you have trees that really mess up further the drainage, the poor drainage situation that we have. And as I mentioned before, some of the trees are a hazard for pedestrian walking or utilizing the trail. Generally, trees should be cleared from the road right of way for big drainage issues as well as a wildlife management perspective. Number 7, ponding areas. The consultant went out during the day that it was raining, so consultant was able to identify 12 ponding areas that the water is simply not draining, either because of the ditch, or a combination of the ditch problems, or the culvert issues, or the trail issue. Number 8, utilities. We do have a lot of utilities buried in the right of way, which can be challenging for us doing any work. And number 9, environmental. It is near a water body, which is Moose Lake, and any drainage work will most likely require other environment water act permits before we can do the work. Kazan did provide a few preliminary options. That's not a focus of our RFP here, but I'm just providing that information because it's available now. Any of the options does not include clearing, ditch regrading, culvert maintenance, culvert replacement, and additions. And then the third choice will be a complete reconstruction of the entire road right away, trying to improve that to a 30-meter wide right of way. Not all the activities are capital items. I know it was identified on the capital plan. However, auditors will push back on things like culvert maintenance or tree clearing or ditch regrading and calling that capital items. I think I should let council know that. There is a potential, depending what the ultimate options that was chosen, that some of the work can be done by internal forces and some of the work can be scheduled over a period of time, do a phase approach, do a portion by portion by portion, try to lessen the load on funding. The RFD here is focused on, because any of the options that require tree removal and trail removal are likely to be sensitive topics, even though they are within county road right away. We have rights to remove the trees and trail. I do have experience running into this kind of situation in the past. It's a very sensitive topic. It is my advice to house a public engagement session, as loosely called, prior to meeting back to council, whether the options are, and ask council to make a decision. That we talk to the public at least. That will serve as a session for people to express their concerns. And I have prepared some draft, a presentation, attachment, a draft presentation, some drawings as well, and then questionnaire form. And that's what I'm here to ask council's approval for, is to accept the information as well as direct administration to conduct a public engagement session for the project and bring back the results for further discussion and consideration by council. If council is amenable to the recommendation, my intent is to schedule the session as quickly as possible. You have some people, some of the residents living there are summer residents, so I don't want to do themselves. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I'd like to say thank you for just wanting to bring this to the residents before we can make anything. I do agree it's probably going to be a sensitive topic for some of the people who see where some of those trees are. Councilor Booton?
Yeah, through the chair to Jeff. Yeah, thanks for all the work that you've done on this, because you've done more work on this since you've been here than what we were able to get since I've been on council. So that's been probably 3 years that was not addressed. And so, the conversations that I've had with residents there is that if we're gonna do this, it's gonna have to be done properly. A lot of the work that was done there was ad hoc, like you said, the trail, all of that stuff was done afterwards. There was not a lot of planning. And it's been probably 30 years of neglect that you're dealing with here. So I really appreciate the approach that you're taking, because when we do go to that public engagement session, I think the approach needs to be not what was wrong in the past, but what is the best for the future. And I appreciate the way that you've approached this.
Anything else from council?
I'll make a motion that council accept Carlson Drive Drainage Project update for information.
Thank you, Councilor. First motion on the floor, discussion of the motion. Not seeing any on public question, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. It's moved, and there's a second motion for the public hearing.
I'll make that motion as well. I'll move that council direct administration to conduct public engagement session for the Carlson Drive Drainage Project and bring back the results for further discussion.
Thank you, Councilor. Again, discussion on the motion. Not seeing any here, I'll call that question, all in favor?
informed administration that some of the entrance signs are leaning and asked us to look into them. We have inspected and looked into them, and they are misaligned between 1 to 4 degrees, with the two worst leaning on the 43 on the east and west side, up to 4 degrees. We have asked the highway maintenance contractor to look into resetting them, since they are in the area already and have experience working, resetting signs and have the ability to control, accommodate traffic on a high speed, high volume, multi-lane highway. When we met with the highway maintenance contractor to look into the work, they declined the work due to the signs being old and frailing almost, and it's actually under an electric line, so they are hesitant to work that way. Now we have we further looked into the signs, and we have come up with a couple options. The first option we have is we can ask another contractor to look into resetting them for us. Now, the risk on that is the sign may break apart and fall apart when you try to reset them, because the work entails removing the sign from the existing post and then resetting the sign post and then putting it back again. Now, the connections between the sign post and the sign, it's integrity on that may be not good enough to and when it falls apart, the replacement cost can be between $20,000 to $60,000. Option 2 is to just delay the sign straightening, and we will continue to monitor until it needs further action.
Councilor Prestige?
Through the chair to the administration. I brought this up probably over 4 years ago. Nothing has been done. Just lately. But it's more than the sign being leaning. These signs are portraying our municipality when you come into the county. I've seen county signs out there that look like the county's gone broke, but not activated. Do we want this to be our way of portraying our municipality? I don't think so. We have to find a way to do this. Don't come up with reasons why you can't do it, come up with a reason why you can.
My comment on that, the integrity of the sign is, could be compromised with trying to straighten this and move it to do this properly. We're already halfway through this construction season as it is. Maybe we look at bringing this back as an RFP for the next budget and have the signs just placed in the back. We have new signs that are level and, according to the RFP here, according to the administration, if we go, and I agree that they should be level, they should, look proper when they're coming in. But if we go to move them and it breaks apart, it ends up a $50,000 unscheduled bill, I'd rather and monitor currently and put this in the budget to actually, even if we got one sign to another, but actually do it properly. But I do agree they need to be done. Councilor Gross?
Yeah, through the chair, just a question to administration. We were undertaking a rebranding. We had a grant for that as well. We pushed the grant. Do we still have the grant for next year, or what's happening? Did send it back?
Through the chair, we gave the province the money back. Subsequently, then they changed the grant, and highway road signage is no longer eligible for that same grant. But yeah, my understanding of that was we originally applied because of the main highway signs. It didn't happen. We apologize that it took us this long. I know this was brought forward as the real issue in April, at least to administration. It did take a little bit longer, and the reason I will will say did take longer is we didn't limit the analysis to just the Highway 43 signs. There are multiple other smaller signs on secondary roads, and so we looked at them all. We wanted to do it thoroughly. The item is solely here because we can absolutely do the $4,000 this year, but we wanted to let you know that there was a risk that you weren't aware of, and we didn't want to surprise you with a worst case scenario $60,000 bill. So we wanted you to have all the cards on the table, so to speak, so that we were following your direction and you knew what the risk was. I do believe that with that risk and looking, I think visually they look at a more steep angle than they actually are. I see it every day and I question it too. But I do think that the best option is to direct us to budget it for 2026 and do it then.
Somebody wants to make a motion to send us the 2026 budget for sign replacement? Councilor Pestridge?
I'll make a motion that we send the Woodlands County entrance signs to 2026 budget.
Thank you, Councilor. Discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's passed. I'm sorry on line we have one other here in 11 before we take a break. 11C3 2025 Hardlight Canyon stair replacement and other works.
Your worship, members of council, the Hardlight Canyon stairs was on the capital plan since 2023 budget, which was passing in 2022 in December. At that time, $70,000 was identified in the budget. And last year in May, I came to council because we had we have tendered the project to replace 2 set of stairs, as well as some miscellaneous work, and the tender price was $210,000, 3 times of our budget. So I came to council, asked for an increase to approximately $135,374 was the budget number that was approved by council back in May of 2024. We have studied the bids that the one single bid that we have received, and the wooden stair replacement alone counts for $135,000. So we took the opportunity to realistically look at whether the wooden stairs, like for like replacement, is still the right solution, because in my mind, every 15 years, spend that much money or any amount of money to replace stairs there may be a better solution to do that. So I have updated council in my previous reports that we have broken down the project into multiple phases. Phase 1 will be 1 set of stairs, phase 2 is the last second set of stairs, and phase 3 is some miscellaneous work. Phase 1 is complete, which is metal. We have engaged a contractor last year to build a set of aluminum stairs for $74,000. That's for supply and install, everything including that price. The thinking process behind that is we figured we're able to deliver both set of stairs as metal in our $135,000 budget that council approved. As well, we also believe that would give county the best long-term investment, because instead of every 15 years, the metal stairs are designed for 50. So that's the benefit. Subsequently, when the phase 1 was completed, we have tendered or solicited quotes for phase 2, which is the last set of stairs. At the time of going out for RFQ, we estimated the second set of stairs cost me around $100,000, because it is larger than larger in size than the first set of stairs. The tender price came out to be quite a bit higher than our estimate. The lowest quote that we received was around $135,000, and that's triggering just trying to develop different options for presentation to council today. So we have engaged a contractor just to replace the last set of stairs as wooden stairs as comparison. And that quote came back to be around between 50 to 65,000. That's EMIR. So we have two options facing us, and one option is based on the remaining budget and estimated cost to complete phase two still as aluminum set of stairs, and then complete phase three, which is only estimated about $10,000 for the miscellaneous work. This will require a budget increase of another $80,000, but the benefit of aluminum stairs are that they're lowering on the ongoing maintenance costs. You don't have to keep refilling the gravel that's in between the wooden stairs, and also there's a lifespan benefit. They last 50 years versus 15, and then they are slip resistant, and there's less excavation required for the metal stairs, and they do not. They're easier to adjust if we need to move them somewhere else. We just need to drive in new piling and basically take them apart and build them in a new location. Option two is if we are to stay within the existing budget, then we can certainly replace the second phase as wooden stairs. And the benefit of wooden stairs are that they are lower in capital replacement cost, and they blend in better aesthetically. Either options would meet county's needs. I should say that this is more of a preferential choice, not exactly a technical choice. Both options can work. The choice really rests in the preference of immediate saving versus long-term replacement cycle, or longer-term replacement cycle. Should the council approves option one, the funding can come from current year's capital project surpluses. Should council approve option two, I do believe the budget is just right for, or just about enough to deliver the remaining work. I know this is a last minute RFD. We still be collecting quotes as of last night, so that's why it's late. I'm open to any questions you may have.
Questions, comments? Mr. Goodwin?
Yeah, personally, when I look at this from a long-term planning perspective, the cost of the overall for the wooden stairs is probably a lot higher, but I would lean more towards the long-term benefit.
Councilor Rose?
Yeah, I'm not excited about spending more money next year or this year. But the reality is, in the long term, it's gonna save, so I'm having with the wooden stairs.
Okay, does anybody wanna make a motion? Councilor Williams, you wanna make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that council approve the budget increase of 80,000 to complete the remainder of required stair replacement and other works that are large capital.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion on the floor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
That's moved. And council will take a 10-minute break here. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. It's 11:15. it's 11:25, we're back. We'll start with 11D1, Q2 2025 CAO report.
So as we've indicated, I've been providing quarterly updates. So without repeating everything that all of our directors' teams have done and that you heard at the last meeting, I just cherry picked some things that I didn't think were on there, and just to keep you updated on some of the different things that we're dealing with. So we're still doing ICF support discussions. We've met with the town 3 or 4 times. There's another item on here now about our ICF discussions with the town, but also just having some discussions with our neighbors in the last quarter. Our teams are working towards their business plans with the goal of having the drafts done to us by middle of September, with a goal of having a finalized project to council in October, but we're on track to do that. One of the items council wanted us to review was our employee benefits program. We did finalize that in June, where we actually were able to increase our staff's benefits at a net savings to our organization, so that was a win-win. And now we're just left reviewing the health spending program. And so with the goal of a similar program updated come January 1, but we're also looking at the management of that program, potentially tightening it up a little bit. As you know, in the last quarter, we hired Mr. Orwa, who's been here at all your council meetings and at your committee meetings. So, so far, I believe it's working out pretty well, according to John and I at least. So, I wanted to leave you hanging there, John, for a second. But yeah, no, everything's working out with that. We did, for the first time, a budget survey, which we referenced at the taxing committee. One of the concerns that I had administratively was I struggle when a municipality just does their budget open houses after the budget's drafted, and then asks the public for feedback. So we didn't get the numbers that we wanted. We got 61, I believe it was, total participants, but I believe that is more than the total attendance of any of the budget meetings we held last year, so it is technically a win. But hopefully going forward, we'll get some more engagement. But it definitely gave not only leadership some directions, it gave management and our team some directions on where to look into 2026, because it's good that we know where the public would like us to put our resources beyond just our professional judgment. We wrapped up our census, so we had a pretty amazing 94% completion across the county, so we're really quite happy with that. You will be getting a report at a future council meeting of all the findings and all the interesting data, but so far it looked really good. We've held a bunch of social committee events and team training that we've had for staff on some different computer functions. We'll be rolling out some additional stuff in Q3. We're continuing to see a stronger uptake on the electronic submission forms for safety, so we're hitting better targets than we were last quarter for safety engagement. We also have trialed a new software through a free trial regarding signing in and signing out procedures. We have seen some instances where the public will call and ask to speak to someone at the office, and they're out in the field or they're out at a meeting, and last thing you want to do is put someone through to a voicemail and not at least give them a heads up that they're leaving a voicemail, because then you hear the questions of, well, there's no one ever answering, which isn't the case, but you still hear it. So we were trying out a new software that would let this front know who's in the office, but also from an emergency point of view, if there's a fire, we actually would know who's in the building where. So we trialed that and it's looking promising, and we may roll it out in January of 2026, assuming budget. But we're also looking at a bunch of other options where if there's a trial option, we're picking some staff to try it. Last thing we want to do is buy a software and not know how it works. So we're definitely doing some trial and error on some of these with different staff and getting their feedback rather than just saying this is what we're doing and not knowing its limitations. We've started developing hands full of internal procedures for operational expectations, just for steps, because we have a lot of operational knowledge in the organization, but we also have a significant amount of new staff, and we want to make sure that the product we put out is consistently delivered. So just clarifying different aspects of different processes so that everyone is providing the consistent product we've rolled out. I won't go into all the policies that the team is absolutely crushing, because you've been part of those approvals and you've seen so far what we're doing, and there's plenty to come. Went to an airport management conference. I realized it's something I never want to go to again, and I'm more than happy to let Steve or someone at the airport participate in those again. There's a whole lot of stuff there over my head, and some things that just utterly terrified me, and I'm glad they're not in our organization. Yeah, it was interesting. I wanted to see the other side somewhere that I hadn't fully understand yet, but I'm developing it, but it was definitely interesting. Right now we have a couple vacancies that we're addressing, but for the most part we're almost fully staffed, knocked on wood, and we'll hopefully stay that way. We're just finishing up our salary grid review, where we've done an analysis of our neighbors and our salaries, and we're also reviewing all our job descriptions to ensure that they adequately reflect the work our staff are doing. Because what we have found is that a lot of our job descriptions weren't properly reflecting those additional tasks that staff have taken on beyond other duties that apply through some of our fiscal recoveries things. And we need to make sure that the workload is difficult but also manageable. And so we're reviewing those, and we will have that to you in early September to make some decisions on and just give you that analysis. Other than that, I think the work overall, even referenced by the 3 or 4 kudos you've all given to staff, shows that our work output has been coming along quite well, and I hope we're hitting the targets and stuff that you foresee. The one thing I will say that we are deficient on is a variance report. I did committing to getting you those quarterly. You will have it in September. The only reason it is not here right now is John started in June. He was getting an understanding of the numbers with the changes, but when he gave me the first draft, there was some discussions that we had at the SLT or SMT level where some of the numbers didn't 100% jive with some of our notes. So we wanted to review those and make sure we were giving you an accurate picture rather than a picture that may have incorrect information. It will be to you within the next 2 council meetings, but we just wanted to double check as John makes the system his own, so to speak. So I prefer to not risk incorrect data going out, and that's the reason for the little bit of a delay. And if you have any issues with that, by all means take it out on me. It's my decision.
Councilor Coogan?
Yeah, just sort of an overall question on the census. Were there any surprises?
Nothing overly shocking. No, I don't think so. I think in my head, I would think that you'd have a better turnout in the more urban areas because they're more dense and more people going through. Our rural areas and Fort Assiniboine, Blue Ridge areas, Goose Lake, they were done the fastest and at 100% completion. So our rural areas did it faster than I would have. That was a surprise to me, but overall there wasn't anything earth-shattering, and it definitely, I don't want to say I'm shocked. I'm very happy that we got 94% because I would say our census wasn't really just a census. It was over 20 questions long, and that meant people took the time to do it. It just wasn't who lives here, how many people, and that sort of thing. We got a lot of really good information, and the surprise that I got out of it was our staff need more information from the public. So I think what we can foresee is in 2026, we'll probably be doing more engagement, more involvement, because the first draft of that census was probably double or worst case scenario triple that size. That means we need to do more engagement if there's that much information we want from the public.
You know, that's one of the things that a lot of the residents told me is that they really appreciated the amount of questions that were on there and what those questions, the direction you were taking those questions. So appreciate the work that the staff did there.
Anything else in CAO?
Yeah, the only thing I would say on the census, we couldn't have done it without Jennifer Christensen, so I have to acknowledge that. And we would be way beyond that. Not only did she manage the project, but when she wasn't happy with the numbers, she was actively out getting people's responses. So she went above and beyond, and you just need to know that.
Good to know. Anything else on computer?
Just a question. When do we get to see?
Potentially the next meeting, the next council meeting is when you'll have it. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Motion to accept the weekly report for information, Councilor Hogan.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the Q2 CAO report.
Thank you very much. Motion on the floor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? Thank you, that's moved. 11D2, Town of Whitewood Library Agreement request to extend for 1 year.
Thank you. So we received this request from the Reeves, from the Town of Whitecourt Library Board requesting that we extend the funding agreement with Woodlands County for 1 year. We enter into a 5-year agreement. This one came due for 2025, and they'd like to just extend it to 2026, or after the elections. And I also, just relation to how our funding agreement may or may not change with their new facilities and stuff as those come along.
Also, just for clarity, as somebody who sits on the board, they just recently changed directors in the library. It was supposed to be on their end, and I asked for information on, I guess, how things are kind of being done and spent, and currently we just don't have the capacity to bring that information to us before this current contract ends. So they're looking for an extension in current rates just so that they can have time to get the information I was looking for to get represented to the council as to how the funding is being covered. So, anybody, any questions or concerns? No? I see, I'll be allowing the motion to council approve the request from the Town of Lakewood Library Board to extend the funding agreement for 1 year with a funding cost of $71,766.18 to be included in the 2026 budget. Discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor? And that's moved. 11D3, letter of support request from the Fort Assiniboine Splash Park Society.
Thank you, council. We have a request from a very active group, the Fort Assiniboine Splash Park Society. They've been working with administration for a couple of years in trying to find a location and just looking for support on the project itself. They've been working closely more recently with Tina, our new recreation coordinator, as well as Heather, manager, and they're assisting them with looking for some grant funding to get the project more off the ground. As a result of that, we know that when you're applying for the grants, they often are looking for letter of support from the municipality. So just, the group is looking for that letter of support. They've got a couple locations that they've nailed down. There's a map included in there, one being by the Catholic Church in Fort swings there, by the gazebo. So yeah, just, and there is attached a draft letter for council's consideration if they're willing to provide that letter of support to them.
It's, easy yes from us to give a letter of support from the community. Anybody have any questions, comments? Councilor Coogan?
No, I had a lengthy conversation with, one of the, folks there, and I actually told them that SBEP was to, contact Tina and contact the administrative staff here. But I also encouraged them to, get in touch with the, all of the different, industry liaison, community liaison people, in order to, really have an overall view of what they wanna do there, because I think their approach is it's more going to be a destination than just, simply a splash park, so it's a bigger picture item than that, and I kind of have to agree with that, because, I think that, all of these things up be, the county's responsibility at some point in the end, so, but I do agree with, not stepping in the way of communities, community building, so I think a letter of support would be, I'll make a motion that council send a letter of support to the Forest and West Splash Parks Society for their leadership in the Forest Splash Park project.
Counselor, discussion on the motion? Not seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor?
In favor.
That's moved. 11D4, council committee / meeting changes.
Thank you. Just with some scheduling availability issues that not only myself has, but also Reeve on that day, there was some questions about our ability to, or at least for mine for sure, ability to attend in person for the GMP meeting. There's a lot on that agenda that is really comprehensive, and I actually wanted to be here. I could participate virtually, but I do think sometimes things are lost if you're participating virtually in some of these discussions. And further to that, based on how efficiently you approved first reading of the land use bylaw today, we no longer need to hold a special meeting for those discussions. So we're just respectfully asking that you cancel the special meeting you had planned for next Wednesday at 4 p.m. and further that you reschedule the governance and priorities from August 20th to August 27th.
Mr. Ferris, other discussion on this? Let's take a motion.
I'll have to be virtual for that meeting, I think, it's gonna fly. But, yeah, I'll make a motion to cancel the special council meeting scheduled for August 25 at 4 p.m. and reschedule the business and priorities meeting on August 20th, August 27th.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the meeting or motion? Seeing any, I'll call the question, all in favor?
In favor.
That's moved, and that takes us to our open session into closed session. If I need a motion to go into closed session, Councilor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that we go to closed session.
Now, for,
In favor.
okay, and we're in closed session here at, I guess it'll be 11:45 on the clock there.
Council received the information regarding county court cost sharing applications.
Okay, Counselor, call the question, all in favor? That's moved, and Counselor Coogan, 12-3.
You know, I'll make a motion that we accept, the letter received regarding Spartan District, FCSS as information.
Thank you, Counselor. Can you call the question? All in favor? That's carried. And number 13,